Very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzama right here from the global headquarters of Channels TV in Lagos. The nation's commercial nerve center, as we choose to call it, because of its impacts on our national economy. Well, I'm not alone on the program. Kayode joins me in just a moment. He'll be joining us from our Abuja studios where he will be joining us this morning. But there's a lot that we have to unpack on the program. It's a 2-hour program, so there's a lot as far as the conversation around the polity, around the economy, as well as politics is concerned. And those are the things we're going to be looking at today on the program. Well, the weekend has its own furore of many things, including what played out in the politics of the different states, as well as some political conversation at the national scene. But today, let's tell you about what has been happening in the People's Democratic Party. You know, when you look at the People's Democratic Party, sometimes it's really difficult to decipher what exactly is playing out, because on one hand, it look like a house that has finally put itself together after the back and forth over who is a substantive national secretary of the party. That issue lasted for a very long time. So if we go back to how all of this started to what is now playing out, because when that particular issue was resolved, there was a lot of excitement within the camp of the people that are quite loyal to the party that finally maybe the party is having some clarity and the distortion and disruptions have been over. But I can tell you for free, the distortion and disruptions seem to be very, very far from over. So you know what played out in 2023 presidential election, where the choice of the presidential candidate, as against some people advocating that the presidency must come to the south, while Atiku Abubakar became the presidential flag bearer. He became the flag bearer, and that kind of made a lot of people, including persons like Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister, who was at the vanguard of the G5, and he disagreed. He said, look, that's not fair in terms of equity and fairness. Well, he led 5 of other governors and walked against the PDP. Well, it looks like his plan worked, because eventually Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president now, won that election on the platform of the All Progressives Congress and is the incumbent president of Nigeria. But that conversation seemed not to have been over as far as the issue of balance and rotation is concerned. And they moved on from there to the issue of the national secretary. Then there were other subnational issues that we've spoken about that for a very, very long time. That issue of national secretary became a big issue that eventually got to the Supreme Court, and they somehow looked for a way to, find a common ground. Anyanwu stood his ground, Udo Okoye fought hard, but it looks like the consensus for peace to reign was to the effect that, okay, let us allow Anyanwu continue with his work, because perhaps the Constitution did not say must. The party's Constitution may not have said he must resign to run for governorship office, which he did, which caused a lot of the trouble. And then things snowballed from there to where we are today. And PDP, perhaps learning from what they say was a mistake of 2022-2023, decided to zone the presidential ticket to the south this time. And persons like Nyesom Wike and the rest said, well, we've finally been vindicated. But as though that was not over, another page of crisis has started yet again. Led by him, called themselves concerned PDP stakeholders, have now converged to say there are things we want to be done before any form of, what can be considered peace, reconciliation will be done. For instance, they are saying, look, we will not agree to the issue of what they call micro-zoning. So a ticket could be zoned to the north or to the south, and then within that region, they can now choose to say, okay, it's the northeast, northwest, north central, but this time it's the south. They're saying, no, let it not be confined to a particular region or geopolitical zone. No southeast, no southwest, no south-south. Let it just be south. And they made other issues around state congresses. But it looks like the leadership of the party is telling everybody who, is talking about this, proposal. Now, what is even more confusing is to the effect that And we've said this over and over, it's sounding like a broken record. But because it's in the polity and it's still a conversation, we have to keep saying it. The Honorable Minister of the SCT, Nyesom Wike, has been very clear. He didn't speak from two sides of his mouth. He's been very clear that as far as the 2027 presidential election is concerned, he will be working for Bola Tinubu. And he's been showing that support openly. But he's also making decision for his own political party or giving his party a condition to meet for peace to reign. So it's a bit confusing, the kind of politics we're seeing being played by the PDP. So in the PDP, we have persons that are loyal totally to the PDP. We have persons that are loyal to the APC, implicitly or directly. And then there are people that are trying to hobnob with the ADC. So the party looks like they are very far away from getting out of the murky waters of their internal wrangling and their internal crisis. So you can see Samuel Otom, who is a member of the G5, read out that communique, if you will, or that resolution by the PDP as far as the stakeholders are actually concerned. So that is what is playing out. I don't know whether we can take a listen to Samuel Otom's remark, and then we'll come back to some other things we're talking about on the program. Okay, you can't get that out. So that's former Governor Samuel Otom talking about reading that resolution. I'm trying to get to that exact resolution. We read it out yesterday on the program, but basically talking about the fact that for peace to reign, you must recognize the South-South Congress that was held, because there's a caretaker committee for the South-South, and there is elected officials that happened in Calabar. They said that must be recognized. They talked about congresses in, I think, in Anambra and one other state. So this has been this back and forth, but the NEC seem to have reacted, the NEC of the People's Democratic Party, and they are saying, look, whatever happens, no matter where the threat is coming from, November is sacrosanct. That's the national convention that we'll be holding in Ibadan, where elected officials will be decided by the party. I mean, the NWC and every other member of the party will be decided as far as this is concerned. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the People's Democratic Party. And I think even the South-South caucus or the Southern caucus of the People's Democratic Party have also come to say, this is how we want these positions shared. National Secretary should go here, National Financial Secretary should go there, some Deputy National Publicity Secretary should go there. So everybody is literally grandstanding and taking position. Whether there will be horse trading, of course, is expected to happen. So there's a lot of talk as far as the issue of the People's Democratic Party is concerned. As long as it's happening, we'll keep you up to speed, because for now, at least they are the lead opposition political parties. A party, they have almost 10 governors, have a lot of members of the National Assembly and State Assembly. So they are still a force in some way, even though they look like a house has been put together, but it's still divided within. And from there, let's move over to some of this conversation as far as the target, talking about reaching the revenue target without borrowing, you know. Some conversation around custom, I think they've hit about, when I confirm the number, I'll let you know. But there's been this aggressive drive for revenue. So what really happens and what we see with the Bola Tinubu administration, besides borrowing, is that besides taking out Nigeria's wage bills, so for instance, I'm talking about the subsidies. They took out PMS subsidy, which is biting hard on all of us. They took out other forms of subsidy like part electricity subsidy. They took out the subsidy for FX, simply saying that they don't defend the Naira when it's absolutely necessary. That freed up some funds for the federal government. And now you're seeing record high numbers in terms of FAC allocation in Naira terms, because in dollar terms, it may look like less or exactly what it was before. But at least in Naira terms, those numbers are way higher, record high, sometimes as much as 2 trillion. Sometimes they hold back the money so that there's not too much liquidity in the system. So this is what the government has used like as a bragging right, that they've been able to work on 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 things that has reduced the level of borrowing according to them. They've borrowed. It's not as if they've not borrowed. They're working on borrowing some more money, because we saw those numbers as far as the gap is concerned. You know, the budget of 2025 has some about 13 trillion naira deficit as far as borrowing is concerned. But let's take a listen to the president and his remarks in this particular meeting.
I know many of you had to suffer the initial abuse and the fear. Where are we going? We know the direction that we should go. We are going up. No, those who may not know will not know. Today I'm standing before you, I can brag that Nigeria is not borrowing, a dime from local bank. The revenue, we have met our target of revenue for the whole year. We met it in August. I've reviewed this morning. Non-oil. If non-oil revenue is going well, then we have no fear of whatever Trump is doing on the other side. And I've just signed off on a huge mechanization, program that every region we have a mechanized center for agric mechanization and have trainees and all of that. That is our path to food sovereignty, food security. You remove hunger from poverty, you have defeated poverty.
Well, that's President Bola Tinubu talking about meeting targets and not borrowing, commending his team as far as this revenue drive, the aggressive revenue drive is concerned. There's more coming in January because the tax laws have been passed into law. They have just been given about, I think, 6 months or so for everybody, whether you're an individual, company, organization, to put your books in order so that when it takes effect. So the impact, now there's a question of revenue target being met or revenue target close to being met. There's another question of the utilization of those revenue target. Then there's another layer of the impact of utilization of those revenue target. As much as you can applaud revenue target being met, there's a bigger question, impact on the polity, impact on the economy, impact on all of this is quite critical, which is what we try to look at. Because most of the time we see big budgets, allocation, earmarks, and sometimes even releases. But when we look at the impact, there's little or nothing to be desired. So that is what you as a Nigerian should look at. Now, the president has said we met our target without so much depending on oil, so we don't have to be afraid of whatever fluctuations are happening in the international scene. That's according to him, but that is debatable anyway. So in his books, we've done pretty well. You must commend us because we know where we're going as a government. So how much of this direction is impacting you as a citizen positively or otherwise is your decision, not mine. But let's tell you what we'll be doing today on the program. I think Kyle joins us. He joins us from Abuja. Oh, dear. Okay, I understand he's going to catch up with us in just a moment, but I can see him. But let's tell you what we'll be doing today on the program as we begin to roll. Well, the first thing we'll be doing today on the program is to take a look at schools' curriculum. Super critical, we will be talking about schools' curriculum. What do we need to look at as far as our schools are concerned? What is the quality of education? Now, the standard may not have changed because it's still 5 credits to get to the university, so those are benchmarks that still stays perhaps as long as it has lasted. But outcome, quality of education is based on the quality of the curriculum. What has been there in the curriculum that we need to throw away and what is now the reality of today's age that we need to quickly inculcate, whether at the primary, secondary, and perhaps, if we have time, tertiary education, so that we don't go study things that are not relevant to us in any shape or form. That is one of the things we'll be talking about today. And as far as the funding and welfare of these institutions are concerned, we'll look at that as well. And from there, we will also be dealing with the, would I call it remarks or disclosure or statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about the welfare of our mission staff or high commission staff or embassy staff around the world. As a matter of fact, we still do not know, best known to the president, why he hasn't appointed high commissioners or ambassadors to these missions or embassies. Well, we'll talk about that with somebody who understands how the space of diplomacy works, and talking about the welfare, what that means to our image, what that means to our welfare, what that means to our international outlook as well. We'll look at that on the program today. And also on the program, there'll be war. That's what it's called, war against illicit drugs. NDLEA will be joining us on the program as we take a look at the fight against illicit drugs. This agency has done quite some good work and continues to do some good work. Yeah, there might be some outlier excesses at some point, but that seemed to be a thing of the past, at least for now. But for some of the great work they are already doing, they are coming to share, and the need for us to keep up that fight and that tempo, so become a coming close to a drug-free nation in that sense. But hey, those are the outlook for the program today. I'm not going to be alone, I can assure you that, on the program. Hadi will join me in just a moment from our Abuja studios. But we'll take a break, not really take a break, and come back to see what the dailies are saying in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Good morning. Welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. Good morning, Jeffrey. Yes, you're not doing this alone. I'll never leave you. Well, we're switching gears now and taking a look at how the front pages are reporting the big stories. And we have joining us from our Abuja studio, Mr. Ayo Akeria, who's a member in Nigeria Guild of Editors. Mr. Akeria, good morning.
Always a pleasure. Good morning.
Good to see you.
Great, yeah, sure.
So we're going to begin with the Guardian newspaper, naturally. And the Guardian leads with that meeting, that very important meeting, which the president had with the CPC group. And you see how the Guardian captions it: battle for Buhari's 12.7 million ballots. Tinubu parleys CPC group, says revenue target met amid data gaps. And you see the picture of the president and other leaders, FIRS, I could see his ministers and even the Speaker of the House of Representatives. But back to that meeting, Mr. Akeria, how important was that meeting to President Tinubu? A lot of people have been saying different things about whether or not he gets support from the North, what will become of those votes. So do you think this is enough to at least corner some of those votes for President Tinubu come 2027?
Well, it's a strategic step or move by the president. For some time now, you will notice that the CPC bloc has been complaining. There are two complaints coming from the North, really. The entire northern region is complaining that they are not getting so much from President Tinubu. And then within the North, you have the CPC group. Recall that there were also a major group that formed the APC, or Progressive Congress, led by the late former President Muhammadu Buhari. So they are complaining and they are becoming quite vociferous, and I think that has got into the ears of the president, and the president has called them to me. He's a politician, he needs to carry everyone along, but whether he succeeded in the meeting he had with the CPC bloc is a different thing. But it's a good step he has taken. I'm sure that during that meeting he was able to explain some of the issues that has led to their grievances. Part of the complaints of the North is that they have been marginalized over time, and that the 12.5 million votes that they are talking about, it was given to former President Buhari. Buhari is no more now. If he's late, with due respect to him. So Buhari is no longer going to be there to campaign during the 2027 elections. If he were going to be alive, or if he were alive, for example, and he still supports the president, he will hit the campaign trail, and perhaps those who even voted for Buhari, the 12.5 million votes they are talking about, Buhari is no longer on the ballot. So that vote itself has even shrunk. It has shrunk significantly. If Buhari say, oh, I'm not on the ballot, but vote for this person, the voters are also going to analyze that individual, whether he deserves their support or not. So fundamentally, it's a good meeting. He has been able to perhaps explain some of the grievances. But the North should also understand that if not for even President Tinubu itself, Buhari wouldn't be president, because he had made 3 attempts previously to be president and he failed until he scurried back to Tinubu, and Tinubu said he assured him of the support of the Southwest Bloc. And don't forget, Tinubu is also a bridge builder. He was able to build bridges across the north, even to some areas in the south, south, and southeast. So he brought all of that to the table, and that ensured Buhari's victory. So this area of trying to make it look like without the North, Tinubu would not have been president. The North those saying that the North should also forget that Tinubu also played his part by ensuring that Buhari was president. So it's a case of rub my back, I rub your back.
You know, this debate around the 12.7 million votes, who made who helped who, is a big one. And I don't even want to get into it because we can spend 2 hours debating the numbers. But, you know, the B part of this story is, you know, where the president was talking about revenue targets, and we don't need to borrow domestically. And it was almost like beating his chest, and I've done some great work. But the Guardian notes that there are data gaps. Budget implementation report, for example, which is meant to be a quarterly, publication. Last time we got it was last year, 3rd quarter. So there have been gaps. So what we get is just snippets here and there from people in government. And people are saying, okay, fine, let us see the data.
Well, the data is very important, but we should not also forget that, whilst the data is important, we should also be looking at what international institutions are saying. For example, don't forget, Tukunje Wela was here 2 weeks ago, and her comments as a global figure, the head of the World Trade Organization, saying that yes, the Tinubu's policies are on track, but that he needs to drive focus towards towards pro-people policies, that the social gap between the rich and the poor, is quite wide, and that the president needs to focus on that. You also saw officials of the government, they rev up the WTO, they revved it up significantly. But the data really is very important. If you look at the 8-year period of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, even that of Jonathan, you saw almost weekly publication, weekly data being pushed out in the media, whether on TV, radio, and the newspapers. The public data, whether allocation to the states, revenue accruing to the federal government, expenditure pattern, oil derivation, oil output, oil that was sold, and all of that, how the money came in, even internally generated revenue by the federal government, how it was shared among the 36 states and the FCT. We saw all that coming up, but I think that is what people are complaining about now. The government needs to open up a bit, and then this opaqueness needs to be reduced significantly.
Jeffrey.
Yes, I was trying to look at some of the highlights of the numbers with our guests. So I know that it's important so that we have this data as well. I totally agree with both of you, so that we can speak to it on good authority. I think I remember when it was reviewed, we now did about 54 trillion, just almost 55 trillion. So if you look at the deficits, and then you can tell how much revenue target we're expecting. I know that we're expecting to rake in about 36 trillion, then 13 trillion naira in deficit. So is the president saying by August we have done 36.35 or so trillion naira in revenue? As I said, if that has been met, let's see the numbers, let's see the data to support all of this, because there's a lot of throwing up of numbers, and one of the things I like about economics is not about emotions. Numbers will speak for itself so that we can interrogate, and then we'll get to the next layer of impact of spending, which is where there's always the missing line, the impact of spending itself. Let me come back to you, sir. Let's go to a leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper is leading with Of course, this politics in the PDP that never ends. Wike camp, PDP governors on collision course over convention. Wike camp, PDP governors on collision course over convention. So there's been this, on one hand, it was national secretary position, the other hand, zoning to the south. Now they are saying don't micro-zone it. What do you make of this back and forth? It looks like for every hurdle cross, another set of obstacle is being created within the party.
Well, it's unfortunate, and it's becoming clearer to most Nigerians that the PDP does not have external problems. That the problem the PDP has is basically internal. And the minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, is a man I've come to respect because I live in the FCT and I can see the work that he does here. A lot of work, a lot of construction is going on. He has sought to, to rewrite the underdevelopment history of the FCT, and to that extent, most residents of the nation's capital indeed applaud Wike. But his politics is thinking to high heavens. I do not subscribe to the Wike brand of politics. Nigerians suffered so much, to best the current democracy that we're having. Any attempt to destroy multi-party democracy and democratic pluralism, it is not going to be accepted by Nigerians. We need the PDP to be strong. We need other political parties to be strong to provide, alternative platform to voters in 2027. Now, the PDP has managed to settle its, national organic squabble. They had a lot of squabble at the national level, national leadership of the party. Somehow, when the party was written off, by people, who felt that the PDP was dead, the PDP was managed to reinvent itself. And then the leadership issue has been settled. Now, last night I watched Wike host his former allies, former Governor Otom of Benue State, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State. We also saw Ayo Fayose, former Governor of Ekiti State, and a couple of them in his private residence in Abuja, where they took that decision to outline fresh requests, that once those requests are not met, then the convention, the November convention taking place in Ibadan, if it holds, that it will be it will not be a fait accompli, that the courts will nullify it. It means that they are presenting fresh challenges, fresh hurdles before the PDP, and you could see what the response is coming from the leadership of the PDP. The national chairman of the PDP, Umar Damagu, is talking tough for the very first time. I used to think that he's a very weak leader, but from what he's saying, he's talking tough. Amadou Fintiri, who is the chairman of the Convention Planning Committee, the governor of Adamawa State, is also talking tough. He represented the chairman of the board of trustees of the PDP, Wabara. And they are saying that now it is time for a pushback and actually to discipline every members of the party who will not fall in line. So these new conditions that is being said by Wike and his allies, I think most Nigerians are going to be disgusted with it. It is no longer acceptable. We should encourage other parties to grow so that we could have alternative. We can't have alternative in 2027. That is the way to go. Nigeria is the biggest black nation on earth, and our democracy is thriving. People putting spanners in the work, I think that is not encouraging. That is not the way to go. They should be discouraged and they should be called out. Wike and his allies, for me this morning, I think enough indeed is enough.
But whether the PDP agrees with that,
okay.
We'll see. With the actions that are taken. I mean, we could switch over to another paper quickly, but I should just say that some also see this as just optics. They see it as theatrics. They're like, we know you are probably the same at the end of the day. You just want us to think that there's some battle, so you keep the stakes up. But that's another theory.
No, I don't think so. It is indeed a battle.
Well, that's a theory that a lot of people have as well, because they see politicians as one and the same, whether you're PDP or APC. But let's go over to the Vanguard newspaper. I mean, people find what's convenient for them. at least if it makes them sleep at night.
Absolutely.
The Vanguard newspaper, of course, leads with the PDP's national convention, saying the PDP draws battle line with Wike's camp. But the story I'd like you to speak to is what is under the big picture on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. The states have no excuse not to pay beyond 70,000 naira minimum wage. We had NECA on our program yesterday, and this was what was said. It's been carried all over. So sort of a follow-up to it. Is that something for you as well? Because we've seen Imo saying we want to pay 104,000. We've seen Ebonyi say we want to do 90,000. I think Lagos is paying 85,000 naira. But there are 34 other states aside Imo and Ebonyi, which has increased, that have not said anything about increasing.
Even for 104,000. Given deflation, we are doing inflation is about 32%.
So you don't think it's even enough?
It's not enough. I mean, yes, I commend Governor Uzodimma of Imo State for leading the way. He recognizes the fact that even the 70,000, how many states are paying it? Some states claims that they are struggling to pay. Most of the oil-producing states, the oil-bearing states in the South-South, I expect them to lead the way. No state in the South-South should pay less than a 200,000 minimum wage. That is the truth. Because the gap between the poor and the rich is so wide, and I will go to the same market. So the political elites must be very careful. They must also be very sensitive, to the existential realities confronting the average Nigerian. The average Nigerian can't feed. In fact, what is the food? What is the food that the average Nigerian eats? We eat gari, semo, amala, rice, beans. We just repeat it. But this is clearly above the reach of the average Nigerian. You want to buy meat, fish is even a no-go area. Eggs are no-go area. You see children becoming stunted, and these are the future leaders of Nigeria. So the point to be made is that the ruling elite should be they should not think that they own Nigeria, that the country belongs to them alone. They pay to themselves humongous allowances. Their salaries are huge. When the governor leaves office, he's entitled to houses and cars and emoluments almost forever, and his wives and children. I mean, the disparity is disgusting. It is becoming troublesome, and this is even at the root of most national revolutions. Because the fact that Nigerians are quiet, they are tolerant, does not mean that they have to be pushed and continuously pushed. There is this talk that Nigerians are like the proverbial goat. You push them to the wall, they try to break it and look for ways of survival. But look, this is graveyard silence. This is a dangerous signal. The ruling elites must be very careful to recognize that Nigerians also deserve a bite from the national cake. Nigeria is rich in natural resources. The I'm from the Niger Delta region. You travel to the entire Niger Delta stretch, you see poverty everywhere in the communities. People can't find drinking waters. Their living condition is very parlous. It's disgusting. It's regret. You see, they don't have access to good health care, no water, no housing, no good schools. This is not the way to go for a country. I was watching some of the optics coming from China as President Xi Jinping was hosting, the Russian president, and then the man, the former President Putin calls President of the U.S. called the little rocket man. That is the president of North Korea. You could see how organized the Chinese environment is. When did China start, and where is China today? China has become a leading economy in the world. Nigeria can lead Africa out of the doldrums, and I think the conversation around minimum wage has become very, very unpleasant. The minimum benchmark right now as we speak should be about 200,000 naira. Look at our policemen suffer, our security services, whether it's the DSS, the police, the army, it's the same complaint across board. It is time to revisit the question of the national minimum wage and let it reflect the reality of the market economy that we are practicing.
I think that's only fair enough. So big ups to the states that have increased it. But Mr. Akaria says we have to do more. So for the other 34 states that are quiet, what exactly is going on? Mr. Akaria, we have to thank you so much. I think a lot of workers will be happy with you today. For speaking for them.
They should be.
So
I'm also a victim. How much do I earn? How much are journalists actually paid?
Let's not go there this morning. But we have to thank you so much. I've been speaking with Mr. Ayo Akaria, a member of Nigeria Guild of Editors. Thank you for always bringing to bear all of these issues.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, lots of issues on the table. The meeting the president had with the CPC block yesterday, the curriculum change by the federal government and what that means for education in Nigeria and a lot more issues. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you know, education is a bedrock of any society. Whoever doesn't highlight what I just said is not building anything. No matter the level of infrastructure, no matter what you do, if you discard education, whatever form of education as may be prevalent in that society, then you're not building for the future, which is why whenever anything happens in that sector, we're big on it. That's why we're having this conversation, because the ministry has done some review as far as curriculum is concerned, so that you don't have learning overload in that sense, or just learning just about anything because the subjects are available to be learned. Something that is relevant to the children, relevant to the students, relevant to the people at the tertiary level that will impact society. We're being joined in the program by Dr. Clinton Ikpitibo. He's the Secretary General of the Nigerian Union of Teachers. He joins us virtually. Dr. Ikpitibo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning, for having me around. Thank you.
And I want to believe that you've seen, I'm trying to look at my books, I want to believe that you've seen some of the reviews that have taken place, which I would like us to speak generally to, because I don't know whether there is something as overeducation or miseducation, but you will speak to that. So from the review that has been done by the ministry, they've now restricted a few things in terms of basic education curriculum offering. That's what it's called. For primary school, that's from primary 1 to primary 3, just about 10 subjects. From primary 4 to primary 6, they have about 13 subjects, with some that are optional. Then junior secondary 1 to 3, that's JSS 1 to 3, they have about 14 subjects. I think there's also an optional one as well. And then for secondary school, I think about 7 or so subjects. What do you make of this review generally before we dig deep into whether this still needs further review?
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this program this morning. Let me start by way of saying that curriculum review is necessary when we consider it against the backdrop of the changing, rapidly changing world of today. Nigeria cannot be static when the world is moving ahead. We talked about the world of today with its emerging challenges, talking about climate change, talking about demographic changes, talking about the pandemics, technology and the digital divide, talk about other emergencies. We actually have to agree that there's need for us to revisit and review our educational system, and the core and foundation of it all is the curriculum, because the curriculum is the totality of the student experiences that occur in our educational process. In fact, it is the roadmap and the guideline given to any educational or any about any given discipline. And so curriculum is very important to us because it is that lays the foundation of any educational system and defines what is taught, how it is delivered, and the skills students develop. It provides, of course, the clear framework for success as far as education is concerned. And so curriculum review or whatever is very important. And at the heart of it all is the teacher. The teacher who is not only but merely seen, which is a misconception, of course. Many look at teachers as mere implementers of education policies, but teachers are expected. These are the people who have the direct interaction, touch with the learners. in a classroom situation, at the community, educational community level, and so on. And so they have to be brought into the fold from the point of planning, formulation of these policies, and so on. So in a nutshell, I think it is important that we talk about review of the curriculum of the country. And that, I think, is very vital because we have to move with time and to be able to meet the demands of the 21st century. Yes, what you said is very correct. The federal government has come up with a new framework that is designed to reduce content overload, improve learning outcomes, and ensure Nigerian students are equipped with skills relevant for today's global demands. They've talked about the situation where the primary 1 to 3 has to study a minimum of 9 to 10 subjects. For primary 4 to 6, have to study 10 to 12 subjects. And junior secondary, 8 to 9. The senior secondary, 8 to 9. And the technical school students expected to study from 9 to 11. So these are all reviews that have been ongoing. Only recently, the Federal Ministry of Education has announced to all stakeholders that they've been able to go through some of these very reviews of the curriculum, and that it is intended, of course, to ensure that it will reduce the content overload and create more learning time for students. It has to reflect the government's commitment, according to the federal government, to deliver
all right, Dr.
quality,
if I can come in, if you can hear me, sir. Dr. Petibo, if you can hear me. Yeah, fantastic. So we had to just show our audience some of the things we're talking about. So maybe let's interrogate further. We'll speak to this, whether or not this is binding. I want to believe that this is going to be binding on all schools, whether it's private or public schools. That is my assumption. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the assumption I have in my head. But let's talk about the subjects themselves and how 2025, 21st century compliant they are, especially from the very inception, the very basic level of primary 1 to 3. Then we can build up. So we have English, mathematics, Nigerian languages, one of the Nigerian languages. That is even a subject of debate. Which language you now take? Because you're talking about over 400 and something or so ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. So maybe it's Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. There are hundreds of others who are not part of the major 3. So that is even a contentious issue. So I would like you to speak to that as well. I don't know why an Yoruba man will be learning Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo. Basic science, physical and health education, CRS or Islamic studies, Nigerian history, social and citizenship studies, cultural and creative arts, Arabic language, which is optional. I want you to speak to, do you think this is comprehensive enough? There's nothing that speaks to technology here, and then the issue around what language other ethnic nationalities should learn. Must they learn the major or 3 major languages?
Yes. Thank you very much. Let me say that the teachers and the constituency that I represent, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, is not the architect of these very reviews. You know, we have the appropriate government parastatal council that is in charge of this. But we are stakeholders, and anything that will bring about a positive change in the system, we are part of it, and we will definitely want to be. You talked about a language. Yes, we are very much aware of the fact that the major languages in the country, we're talking about the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Igbo. And but you look at the national policy on education, it gives us a clear roadmap as to what should be done at the rudimentary level, the foundation level, like the primary level. That teaching has to be done with the native or that language of the environment. I must say, yeah, that I am an Ejoma. from the Niger Delta. And it's left with this very environment to ensure that the Ijaw language is brought to the fore and the appropriate teachers have been developed to carry on. The national policy already covers that, okay, at that rudimentary level, at that, in fact, level of the primary education. And so I am aware in my own environment, like Bayelsa State, efforts have been made towards the teaching of Ijaw language at the primary level. So what we are really saying is that the national policy of education covers that. We cannot run away from the fact that we have major tribes and those languages that have been brought to the fore over time. But it does not mean it must be there. We must start from somewhere. From time, maybe we will be able, all other languages and tribes, whatever we may want to call them, nationalities, will be able to develop the necessary manpower and so on to be able to address those areas. Having said that, I want to say that the issues about a curriculum in this country is not without challenges. Today, we must agree with the federal government that they are actually trying to see that there are reforms. And like I started by saying that, considering the changes, the emerging challenges in the education landscape, based on the changing world, of today, rapidly changing world of today, there is need for us to move with time and be part of the global world. And so the relevance and the necessity for us to bring about reforms in our curriculum, I think is germane and it's important. That is the point I was making. And going to the nitty-gritties, like I said, we are stakeholders, and sometimes when we say about challenges in this very process of developing curriculum and also implementing curriculum, one of the things we've been able, and we have been calling attention of the government to, is that area of not involving all stakeholders in the development process. Teachers are core in anything about education. They are the foundation. In fact, they are at the heart of education delivery. At every level, from the kindergarten to primary to junior secondary to senior secondary to the university. How far have teachers been involved? Because they know the needs of the societies. There is no place in all nooks and crannies of the country. We must agree that we must find a teacher. And these are the people that are dealing with the localities. They know the problems and the challenges, the needs of the society. How far have we been bringing these people on board in the process of formulating, planning and formulating these policies? And that's one of the challenges we have.
I'm happy you've dovetailed into the issue of teachers, which is a very fundamental question. So I would like you to speak to the issue of capacity. In terms of the capacity, do we have, first and foremost, do we have enough manpower? I mean, the real professionals, not the ones that are looking at it as a means to an end, just a hustle through because there are no other things to do. And this is what is available to do, so they get involved in teaching practice. I've been taught from primary to secondary to university, and I can tell, from looking back now, I can tell who was really a teacher that is doing this almost like it's a calling, and the ones that were just hustling. So talk to us about capacity of the people, these teachers. Do we have sufficient, or how significant, what's the level of significant numbers we have in terms of the capacity of teachers, especially from maybe what you know, and as well as their welfare, which is quite critical as well?
Yeah, thank you very much. You have really actually raised a very germane and important point. Like I said, teachers are the heart of every education delivery at every level. And
oh dear.
Until we make it a thrust in the country to ensure that the teachers, the implementers of these education policies, are brought to date. What I'm saying here is we've been talking about professional development of teachers. And like the times are changing, it is only obvious, and it's a given, that those that have been given the very important assignment and responsibility to prepare the young ones that will become the future leaders should be always brought up to date. They should be acquainted with the current trend of events, educationally speaking. And so in this area, you would want to ask, I would want to join you to ask, how many of the teachers have been given the necessary and needed opportunity to enjoy professional development, continuous professional development. That is one area we've been lacking. Today we are talking about the internet, expansion, which has also come with the issue of a digital divide. The fact, as far as these very reviews are concerned, they've been talking about the aspect of technical education, whereby skills have to be acquired by the learners from the elementary level, from primary to junior secondary and so on. But we must ask ourselves the very true questions, that how many of the teachers are we empowered? How many of the teachers are we giving the necessary, gadgets and tools to be able to deliver that technology in education that we are all earning for? Look at the Nigerian context. We are not talking about education in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Kano or Lagos. We are talking about education of all the children of Nigeria, because it is the fundamental right of every child to quality education. The child of the poor, the farmer, the market woman, the truck pusher, they are all having that same right to quality education. So what are we talking about these communities in the rural areas that, as we speak today, cannot even access common GSM? Yes, there are communities come from the Niger Delta that till this day you cannot communicate with them online by using the GSM.
Oh dear. All right. Apparently, technology doesn't want Dr. Kutibo to land on his thought. Dr. Kutibo, can you hear me? Oh dear. Okay. I kind of wanted to ask one or two questions to Dr. Kutibo, but apparently it looks like technology has another plan for it. All right, Dr. Kutibo, if you can land on your thoughts before technology cuts you out entirely in just 30 seconds.
Can you come again? It's not very clear to me.
I was saying if you could just land on your thoughts as we wind down because of the network. You were talking about the welfare and all of that. Just to land on your thoughts.
Yeah, right. Like I was trying to say, that there's actually need for the teachers to be brought up to date, for them to upgrade their own knowledge and skills, and of course, to be able to be innovative and to be able to resilient to ensure that they meet the demands of the 21st century. It is only at that where continuous professional development is brought to the fore to equip the teachers who are the core implementers of a curriculum in our schools that we can achieve it. It's not about formulating the policies. They are very good, and we join hands with the government to ensure that these changes are brought to bear. But we are saying that there are challenges. Talk about the resource allocations. Internationally speaking, the recommendation benchmark is about...
Yes, my apologies, we're totally out of time, but I must thank you so much for bringing perspective to the conversation. You're a key stakeholder. That's why we brought you in to have this conversation about the review of our curriculum from primary to secondary to technical education, just to reduce that load and review it to fit what is available or necessary for 2025 onward. Clinton Ekpetibo is the Secretary General of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, joining us virtually. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking politics. Former Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika is our guest as we talk more about what has been playing out as far as the politics of 2027 is concerned and more. In just a moment, stay with us.
Well, let's talk about that meeting which the president held with CPC leaders yesterday. It's been described as a very important meeting. Some have said, well, this may just be masterstroke for the president to capture or corner those millions of votes that a lot of people see to belong to late former President Muhammadu Buhari. We have a man who was in that meeting now joining us on the program this morning is former Minister of Aviation, Sir Hadi Sirika. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, thank you very much.
Well, you were in that meeting. So for a lot of people who've been wondering, where's the former minister been? What have you been up to? Was that a way to sort of respond to them? But I didn't go anywhere, I'm still here.
No, not necessarily. Actually, I've been around and minding my business. And of course, taking time to relax and rethink and try to continue what I was doing before politics, before being a minister. I am a professional and the industry is wide and it's there. I am now involved with so many things to do with new aviation, if you like, new innovation in aviation. Yeah, so it's a time to reflect.
So you're not a part of a coalition?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Where did that come from? Yes, we heard the minister, even the president's aide had said that. Where did it really come from? They must have seen you in a meeting or heard that you were holding a meeting for them to have said that, because they wouldn't say things without proof, would they?
So yesterday I was with the Chief Bio Onanuga in the villa, and I said to him, hey Bio, you said that I was in the coalition. I was not. I never would be. I don't think I will. Where did you get that from? And he said, no, from the reports. I said, which reports? I mean, I think at that level, people should have been very diligent to check. People can join coalition. It's democracy if they want to do so. And I'm old enough and big enough in the space to be able to decide for myself where I go to. I am a founding member of the APC, and I didn't just join APC or become a founding member, but I believed in the philosophy that took us to politics was President Muhammadu Buhari at the time. So, and I am with that. And I gave the APC its name, for example. I gave CPC its logo and color. I mean, I was a member of the Buhari organization where we all started. We started from Project Nigeria to Buhari organization to CPC, APP to AMPP to CPC to APC. So, I mean, I have been there. People in the coalition, like I said, it's democracy. They can go to wherever they want to go to. They are free Nigerians. They are supported by the Constitution of Nigeria. But I wasn't. But I think Bio said, oh, he's very sorry. And then, so I think people just assume. People like us who once we were in politics at the time, maybe in the House of Reps and the Senate, we've been very vibrant and were very visible. And they think we can say no to anything if we don't like it. So they believe that people like us should ordinarily be in the coalition. I don't do things without thinking deep through it. I'm not an impulsive person. And I'm not in politics just for what some people are in politics for. I am in politics because I believe in an ideology. I mean, I was the secretary that wrote the Constitution and the manifesto of the APC itself, with Salisu Momo as my deputy secretary, with Chief Audu Ogbe as the chairman. So, and like I said, the APC name, I gave the name.
Yeah.
So I am. I think they got it wrong. That with that, and so now they know that I'm not in the coalition.
That's very interesting. Because I know you had put out a statement or a tweet to that effect, saying that you're a founding member of the APC, talked about the name itself, and you said, I will always be where President Buhari is. Yes. If you must hate him, hate me too. I have no apology. So there's been a lot of talk about, so how much of the 12 plus million votes now will be President Tinubu's, now that it looks like the CPC bloc is with him. Is that also why this meeting held? To show that, hey, those millions of votes that late President Buhari was carrying around is not going nowhere. It is staying with President Tinubu.
So, to be honest, the purpose of the meeting of yesterday was to go there and officially pay our condolences to the president, who did extremely very well after the demise of our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, to officially do that. And secondly, also to appreciate him for what he had done. And then, of course, also to assure him of the support of our party, for which now he's the leader. So the main purpose is really to go there and pay our respect and appreciate him for what he did for President Muhammadu Buhari, late President Muhammadu Buhari. And because it's in our tradition, when you have a leader, after everything has died down, the man has been buried, you go to him and you also pay condolences to him because he deserves it more than we do. He's a partner. But talking about the 12 million votes, I have to quote our leader, who is allegedly Hamma, who was the Director General of the Buhari organization from 2003 to 2015, shortly before Governor Amechi was made the Director General. So he's our leader and he still is. When he was asked, I think it was on Arise TV during the week of the death of President Muhammadu Buhari, whether the 12 million votes of President Muhammadu Buhari are dead with him. And he said, no, votes don't die. They're there. And they were created by President Muhammadu Buhari and his team because he connected with the electorates, with the people. We traveled 600 local governments by road out of the 774 in 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015. And, well, up to 2011. By road, we've been to every local government in the country. Like I said, 600. And the masses connected with him. And they believed in his ideology and his principles and what he stood for. And they saw in Buhari a leader who will take them out of the woods, a leader who will take them to the promised land, a leader they can connect, who is honest, straightforward. What he says is what he means. A leader who has all of the experience that requires to be the president of Nigeria. A leader who speaks their language.
I think President Tinubu also, well, reflects such values.
So since the votes are not dead, and since the people that are in this APC now are people that came from Project Nigeria,
right,
to Buhari Organization, to APP, to AMPP, to CPC, are those 12 million votes. These are the people that are still available and still in the APC, and to which President Tinubu will benefit from. Fantastic. Because he's the leader in the APC.
So your role in all of this is very important. It's quite pivotal. So when a lot of people saw you in that meeting, they said, wait a minute, that's the former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika.
Yes.
Is he in that meeting to get a soft landing for the fraud charges against him, 19 billion, 2 billion, even your family members are named in that case? Is that what you're doing this time around?
Well, unfortunately, this matter is in court of law, and it's not a matter that should be subjected to press. But I'm not the kind of person that gets rattled by things like this. I'm a very clean man, if you care to know. I'd worked with people, permanent secretaries, directors, heads of agencies, and the government has every instrument at their disposal to find my content and character and personality, and I have deposited it in service. But since it's a matter that's in court, I think it's indecent to talk about it on TV.
So that's not why you were there, to get soft landing?
I am there because I ought to be there, deserve to be there. Like I said, I cannot count, well, let me rephrase, to say that most of the people that are today running around claiming to be leaders of APC are people that were never there when we were there. They joined us 10 years after we began the struggle. We are the owners of the project. We have a purpose for the project. If you will count a few people on your hands, I will be one of them. It cannot happen without people like us. I'm not being boastful. I am saying that you are a journalist. You can go back in time in 2002 when we started, and everywhere you go, I have been in every single meeting.
Right.
And more importantly, on the recommendation of Sule Hamma, our leader, President Muhammad Buhari sent me to be the first person to go to Lagos to speak to President Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then as Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the governor, to try to bring him to an alliance. And it was my report, after I go back, that a committee led by Sule Hamma, with Mike Ahamba, Farouk Adamaliu, Joy Nuniye, Ubagala Dima, and the rest of them, that we began shuttle between Lagos and Kaduna, as it were, to try to forge an alliance, common candidate, and all of that, you know, which all failed. And I was in the merger committee.
All right. My colleague in Lagos, Jeffrey, wants to come in to just push this further. Jeffrey, over to you now.
Yeah, good to see you, Mr. Sirika. So let's begin with some of the things you said and then pick it from there. I know I've heard former President Muhammadu Buhari say it, and I was like, okay, did I hear him well? Was this a political statement? But now you've repeated it, that in campaigning, you've gone to every local government area in Nigeria, 774. Is that what you mean?
No, what I said is we've been to 600 out of the 774.
Okay.
We've been to 600 local governments. And by road, because we didn't have money to set up planes in those days. We're talking about 2003 election. The best organized campaign based on issues that connected with the people of the downtrodden people of our country, the electorates. We traveled to 600 local governments out of 774. We did that. In fact, it was even in Benue State that, if you remember, he was attacked and they shot at us. He even, I think, had a dislocation of his finger. You know, I mean, these are things that, because people are they're forgetful. They forget things that happened. But they are deposited in history. And I'm sure if you research, you'll find out that we indeed been to those local governments, 600. So we generated those 12 million votes.
Okay. So
President Muhammad Buhari was right to say so, and I am also right to re-echo it.
Okay, so now, yes, apparently now it's clearer that it's not the entirety, but a significant majority of the local government area that you've stated. So let's talk about this.
We didn't go to Burtu and Bomadi, for example.
Yeah. No problem. I think it's clearer now. I just needed to put that on the record. But let's talk about this move, because it looks like in the 2027 election, there's a lot of attention, especially in the Northwest. And that's where former President Muhammadu Buhari comes from, God rest his soul. And if it was in the ancient time, would have said it was more like a tribal warlord. I'm not talking about it in terms of ethnicity now. I mean, the kind of cult followership he had. I don't think anybody right now in northern Nigeria has anything close, near what Muhammadu Buhari has. And maybe Kwankwasia, something, but not as Muhammadu Buhari. So when this bloc comes to say they are the CPC bloc, they're able to rally the numbers significantly, because there's a lot of political hot air going on now for the president. How feasible is this? Why are you guys so confident that it is a possibility? We're talking about a man who is no more, where everybody is now going to say, okay, we can now make decisions for ourselves. There's no backing of Muhammadu Buhari anymore.
Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't like the idea that you will reduce President Muhammadu Buhari to the northwest or even to north like a warlord of Asian days. President Muhammadu Buhari, I think he's the most experienced Nigerian, dead or alive. He has lived in all parts of Nigeria, and he has extended hands of friendship to all sections of Nigeria. The first two vice presidential candidates of our party were from the Igbo extraction, and the two others came out from the southwestern extraction. And at some point, his staunch, almost vocal supporter was Tam David West of blessed memory. So President Muhammad Buhari is all over Nigeria. That's one. Number two, that President Muhammad Buhari has died. Yes, may his soul rest in peace. Amen. But his ideology and principles lives on. And people who, it's a movement, if you like. People who were there with him, who started it all, like I said, we still have them around. Sile Aham, I keep calling his name. He's our leader. He's alive. He was at the meeting yesterday, if you care to know. And I think some of the press interviewed him. So why are we so confident that APC will win election in 2027? We're so confident because if I take example of my state, who are the politicians in the states that the masses connect with? Which party are they involved with? Why is the governor? Why is Aminu Bello Masari? Why is Santa Abu Ibrahim? Why is Hadi Sirika, for example? Why are all those people that really connect with the people and they've been there and they believe in the philosophy and the ideology of the Muhammad Buhari movement? And we feel that the people in Katsina still identify with that ideology. And they were also members of the APC in the majority. So I feel that I don't want to go to the saying that all politics are local, which it is, but in Katsina State, we're confident that we win. And so also in many other states. And when you look at numbers, and if you look at any other political party, the PDP, the coalition, the SDP, who are in those political parties that are better politically, that are able to draw the masses to vote much better in the APC, in my opinion.
All right, Mr. Sirika, I think your point is well noted. You know, when I spoke to what I said, I was speaking to election numbers, and we can go back to see how the election numbers play out in terms of distribution. So that's basically what I was talking about. But before my colleague continues with you, I must ask you about Air Nigeria. A lot has been said about Air Nigeria. I don't know whether you've made your comments around this. I don't know whether this is in court as well, or part of the litigation that you were referring to, but when the current Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development was asked about it, he said it was a bad deal. He talked about the fact that we're going to be paying over $100 million to Ethiopian Air in the space of about 3 years or so. He said, what are they now bringing to the table besides just giving us aircraft? What we are paying them, so what is the investment here? It looks like ab initio it was a terrible deal. That's why nobody's even looking at those papers. Is that what you signed up, a bad deal? Or is just commentaries that you don't agree with?
Well, how I wish we are not live in this program. I had no intention to speak about my time in office for now, and I intend to bring up a book in that. But since you asked the question, and people will be very interested, and I think I was on, if I remember, either Channels or Arise, during the controversy of the Nigeria Air. For your information, first of all, what you do know, I'm sure, that is a public-private partnership which was regulated by ICRC, the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, who gave certificates of the OBC and the FBC, who participated actively in the process. It is not our process. It is a process of ICRC, and it is not a bad deal. And I read on the papers that we spent, or I spent 100 billion or thereabout, and it's lost in the process, which is a lie. I did say in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, the total budget for the national carrier was 5 billion. The total amount released was 3 billion, and I left there with over 1 billion naira. And the monies, about 2 billion that was spent, nearly a third of it went to the consultancy, i.e. the business case, which is OBC, the FBC, and so many other consultancies that were given during that time. And the balance of the money, of course, are salaries of the staff that we have. By the way, we went through every single step of the ICRC process, and we got it to end, and we had an airline some people went to court. Mrs. Airpeace, United, and Azman went to court to say that we cannot, as a government, establish an airline where we'll take a stake of 5%. And that is what's told it. If there was no court case, and if the government that came in had pursued the court case, by today we will have the airline. And talking about Ethiopian Airline, I did say, look, 95% of all airlines that are operating within Africa are non-Africans. They are the Emirates, the Qatar, the British Airways, Air France, etc., etc. Except for Ethiopian Airlines. And these people have been for 79 years running the airline. They have made a statement of how to run an airline. They are African. And they came to partner with us to be able to open up the world for us. Today, the price of ticket out of Abuja to London is more expensive than the ticket from Accra to London. And the reason is because we do not have a strong, formidable airline with the capacity to continue to do so. We've seen Airpeace before. We've seen like Azman before. We've seen them. When I say we've seen them, we've seen Cabo, which was bigger, much bigger than all of them. We've seen Okada, which is much bigger. We've seen ADC. We've seen Arik. We've seen them. And they've came and gone. And what is amiss is that the capacity that they need to build to compete with people who have 250 million airplanes. I don't think an airline that has 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 aircraft that are old can compete in the global market with the well-established carriers that have 250 airplanes and expect to operate and make business and make profits. So to sum it up, all that we did to establish the Nigeria Air would taken it to the final step before these people now went to court, number one. Number two, there is no fraud. If there is fraud, by now they would have said it. And if the minister is saying, I don't want to join issues with him, because that may go into what they are claiming to go to court, on. But if he's saying it's a bad deal, Nigerians should invoke the Freedom of Information Act, which is in place, to go to the Ministry of Aviation, where the gentleman sits as the minister, and get the documents, and go to also ICRC and get the documents, and establish where the fraud is. They should go and establish where the fraud. There's no fraud. It's a lie. And this airline, whether it is done now or in the future, it will come to become. Because we didn't arrogate to ourselves the knowledge of aviation alone. Those who trained us are alive. But what we did is that I personally invited, and also officially through the official channels, invited Mrs. Airpeace, Mrs. Azman, Mrs. Arik, all of them, to come and join and buy shares of that carrier and own it. And go into joint venture with either, at the time we're thinking of Qatar, we're thinking of Lufthansa, and we're thinking of Ethiopian Airlines. But when the bid happened transparently, to which some of those airlines participated in the bid up initio, Ethiopian Airlines won. And they won fair and square. And it's not our process. It's the process of ICRC. They should go and ask ICRC whether there's corruption or bad deal in it. And the documents are there. When people have opportunities to come to press and talk, talk is cheap. But the reality, the truth, is deposited in the records of government, in ICRC, in Ministry of Aviation.
Because I recall then.
And I thought that I'd been invited here to discuss this visit of President Tinubu, but it's okay for the digression to talk about it. But the days that we talk about Nigeria Air would come. Well, and my book also will come. And
look forward to that.
I'm sure many people will write on this project. But there's no fraud. I am not a fraudulent person, and I didn't lead a fraudulent ministry, in fairness to them. And all that happened, the ICRC players are still the ones that are there now. They should go and ask them. And the FEC also, the Federal Executive Council, has its documents, and which you can invoke Freedom of Information Act to go there and check and cross-check and establish facts. And you have the moral responsibility as pressmen, as journalists, to come back to the people and tell them the truth.
Well, Mr. Sirika, that's why we have you here, to ensure that we hear the truth from you, or at least your side of this matter. There are lots of Nigerians out there who still see you, and I want you to wind down on this, who still see you and they remember that episode? Because they expect that we still have Nigeria Air right now. In fact, a lot of people had planned. If you should have, I'm sure you saw the excitement then. A lot of people were excited. Oh, finally, we have a national carrier in that sense. So you can imagine the disappointment they feel right now, that few years down the line, there is nothing of sorts anymore. So you would understand why they think this was a scam, this was fraudulent, and they see the court cases and they say, well, maybe this is evidence of that. So I want you to take this moment. Again, they saw reports about how you built houses for billions of naira. Again, we need you to speak to that, because these are things you must have seen, and I'm not sure you've spoken to that. So I want you to speak to those Nigerians who see Mr. Hadi Sirika as someone who scammed Nigeria, someone that we can't trust because of that episode. I want you to look at the camera and speak to them while we expect your book, of course. But I want you to seize this moment to speak to those issues.
Well, thank you very much indeed. And honestly, like I said, I had no intention to do so. I've read all of those things, but given the opportunity, maybe we have to go back memory lane to say that we were operating a roadmap. When we came into government, I'm sure between the ministry and its predecessors, you'd have like 1,000 years of aviation experience. But yet we didn't arrogate to ourselves all of the knowledge. And we had the IOS report, the PoliticsToday report, and all those other reports deposited within the ministry. What we did as responsible people at the time is to first commit to a study. What is wrong with the industry? What can we do better? How can we improve it? What are the missing issues? And from that, we developed, I single-handedly penciled down the items on the roadmap and discussed with the ministry, and they agreed with me. And we called in 2016, early, around about January, February, I can't remember the dates, we called for a stakeholder conference in Musa Yar'Adua Center here in Abuja. And every single aviator that answers his name was in that conference. And we debated the roadmap, and we agreed that that's the way to go, to establish a national carrier, and then to do a maintenance center where it will be the feedstock for the airline and vice versa, to do an aviation leasing company to be able to lease out at cheap rates equipment, aircraft and the rest of them, for people, and to have a university where you go into research and development of civil aviation and aerospace, and so on and so forth. And this roadmap intertwine with each other. People focus on the airline because what has been amiss. So we began to establish the roadmap, and we believe that, look, the best way to do it is, since government should not have business and business, we should go through PPP, public-private partnership, more so because there's an established agency regulating that process now, as against before, when Nigeria Airways was thrown to the dogs, right, or thrown away. And we began the process by, one, according to the law, to develop to appoint the transaction advisor. That in itself is a process. We had to advertise, we have to get the best hands, we had to take it to ICRC, they had to approve, then we had to go to FAKE, and then it came back, and then he went to the market to do the outline business case, which also took time, according to the law. After the business case was done, the back and forth with ICRC guiding us and went through that process. That took us the best part of our first tenure. And then we went to the market, we did the road show, we did everything, right, and we tried to partner. No, I'm coming, please. This is because now that, you asked me to speak about it.
I want you to speak to Nigerians as quick as you can.
Okay, as quick as I can.
Who think that you scammed the country? That's the question I asked.
Okay, who scammed? Well, it depends on, anybody can say anything that he likes, whether I scammed Nigeria or I did not. Like I said, it's a process of ICRC to establish that airline. We did the best that we could, and we got the best deal for Nigeria.
All right.
And all, no, hang on.
No, we have to anchor, but you can land on that point.
Okay, please. Because so in the establishment of the airline, and in trying to select who the partner is, and I say it's a process of the ICRC, it took us time to follow diligently. We went to the FEC, Federal Executive Council, 9 times to go and come back, on the business case alone. We went like 3 times on the establishment of on the appointment of the transaction advisor. We went also very many times to do the full business case. And the government at the time, or some people in Nigeria, wanted money to be given to us, for us to go. Establishing airline, tomorrow, if you give me money, I can just go and start the process and establish airline within 6 months. But because we wanted it to be a PPP with private sector in control and government has only 5%, that's why we went through all that diligent process. During that time, very many airlines came and we certified them. We issued the license during our time. 50% of Nigerian airlines were established during our time.
So you think it's unfair to say
it's very unfair, very unfair. And I said it's not a fraud. It has been established.
Right.
If not for the court case, which is before Justice Lagba or something like that in Lagos, you know, if not because of that, you'd have had the airline. We even demonstrated the livery, the color, and everything, and how it's going to look like.
We recall that. I think a lot of Nigerians.
Yeah, and then people because people are not fair. Like I said, it's something that is subjective also. It's in court before Justice Alagba. So I don't want to go to the details.
Certainly.
But to say that people had forgotten the runway closures and total rehabilitation and reconstruction of Abuja runway, Enugu runway, Maiduguri runway, that forgotten all that we had done in that 8 years of governance.
Mr.
Sirika, the airline.
This is a conversation that is ongoing, but those houses credited to you, were they built indeed by you?
Which houses?
The houses that the pictures were circulating at the cost of billions of naira. Did you see those pictures?
No, I didn't. All of the houses that I own before I became minister are the houses that I still own.
So you didn't build any new ones?
I have attended my code of conduct certificate to government. All the houses I own, I still own them. I didn't just fall from the sky and become a minister.
Mr. Sirika, we must thank you for opening up on these issues. It's important to always balance the stories, and that's what we represent here on Channels TV. So when you do that book, please let us know.
Yeah, also before this book, please, after the court case, the one that is currently going on that you made reference to, and the one that is before Justice Alagba, can you kindly, because I restrain myself, say things here, will you please kindly be also fair to me to bring me back and say the full story?
We'll bring you back 2 times.
And then we see whether those making the allegations are the fraudulent ones, or me that served there and the people.
So
and I didn't serve
we're giving you our word. We'll bring you back, not once. In fact, if we need to bring you back, we'll bring you back twice. So we have to thank you so much. We've been speaking with Mr. Hadi Sirika, former Minister of Aviation. You have a title now, but I don't think we've done the official turban. We have to thank you so much for your time. I will look forward to having you yet again.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
We take a quick break now. When we return, we have Ambassador Keshi joining us. He's been patient with us, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Is a former career diplomat, Ambassador Joe Keshi, joins us virtually. Ambassador, thank you so much for coming on the programs, and really thank you for your patience. I know you've been waiting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me, and good morning.
Ambassador, there are so many layers of questions I want to put across, but let me start with the one that stopped most of my mind before I come to the present. I think it's over 2 years now. We've not had envoys in about over 100 missions of ours since they were recalled just shortly after the president assumed office. Is there a rationale behind such decision that is admissible from your experience as a diplomat?
No, I'm not too sure. We've never had this kind of situation, not even during the period of the Civil War, which I think history tells us that Nigerian diplomatic structure was expanded, you know, and even post the Civil War too, in order to enable Nigeria, you know, meet up its own international obligations and to project the country's image as a leader from the African continent. So the situation we find ourselves today is confusing. It's, in my view, inexplainable. I hear often that It's as a result of lack of resources. But the irony of it is that, let me just say this before I talk about the irony of it. Foreign policy is very expensive, very, very expensive. And so the ministry itself, at any given time, there's a problem with the exchange rate. The ministry, I think, is the main victim in terms of government financing, for government trying to find funding to support the activities of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But what has happened in the past? What has happened in the past that when we get to this kind of situation where, either as a result of currency fluctuation or changes in currency rate and the rest of it, successive governments in Nigeria have always come to the aid of the foreign ministry and its missions, because they realize, because they prioritize, they paid attention to foreign policy, and they do recognize that the country needs a very strong and assertive foreign policy. Traveling all over the world, signing deals, it's not just enough in terms of foreign policy. You must also strengthen the structures that implement or that formulate and implement this foreign policy. So it's confusing to everybody. And the second point I want to make, again, in terms of shortages of resources, look, we all live in this country. I live in this country. I say in this country. Every now and then, I hear huge sums of money being given to states, And yeah, I'm not condemning that these monies are being given to states and so on. But when you see that in one breath, so much money is being given to states, and one critical agency of government is not being funded, and you are told there is no money, you begin to wonder. You begin to question the contradiction. Last night, I think again I heard, or was it this morning, I was hearing that, the federal government has met its revenue obligations or revenue collection or whatever. And I said, so if that is the case, it means that there must be money somewhere. So why is the foreign ministry in this type of unfortunate situation? So it's very, very confusing, and nobody can give any adequate explanation except the government itself.
In terms of optics, Ambassador, what do you think this is doing to us in terms of optics? What is the impression we are sending, or the image we are putting out there as a country? Because I know this government is saying it's doing its best to make sure it repositions Nigeria's image and all of that. But this in itself, does it affect it in any way?
Of course. I read a statement. Look, let me just give you an example. You're talking of in terms of optics. Our mission in South Africa has had its light cut off from the mission for 2 years. Anybody can cross-check that. If the diplomats who are on the ground wants to tell the truth, if they are not scared of telling the truth. Lights have been cut off for 2 years in our mission. I visited there, I think in June, July, I was thereabout. I visited the mission. So I'll say this for sure. So every night in a very rich neighborhood, all lights are on in every houses on that avenue, except the Nigerian mission in total darkness. So how do you want the people at that area to think of Nigeria itself? Not to talk of, other countries where staffs are resigning, local staffs are resigning because of inconsistency in the payment of their allowances and so on. So in terms of optics, it's really a bad situation when you come to think about it.
So, in fact, now that you've mentioned that, I think we also hear the Nigerian house in New York, quiet price property is also in a very deplorable situation. But if we talk about, on one hand, the deplorable state of some of the infrastructure, when the issue of the welfare of we understand, if my records are correct, I think since September last year till today, some staff of the embassy or missions, I don't think it's across board, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have not been paid their salaries. And the president yesterday was saying that literally, excitedly, boastfully saying, look, we've met our target. How do you reconcile this, that we're making so much money, as said by the leadership of the country, and from what we've seen being shared as fact, and on one hand, salaries are being owed? What do you make of it?
Well, again, that's what I said about that. There's a contradiction that is so difficult to, to explain. But look, if it's positive news, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, the federal government set up a committee to look into this. Probably some would say too late, too little, but no. I think it's a positive development that eventually some decisions have been made to resolve the issue. The only thing I would say is that I sincerely hope that the committee that was set up to look into the problem of funding for the ministry would act with some military precision and ensure that the issue is resolved. I'm very sure that the president, Nigeria will be represented at the United Nations Annual General Assembly. So it would be very good if some of these issues are resolved before, even before the president goes or before the Nigerian delegation arrives in New York, because it will really be, again, use the word optics, to have a large Nigerian delegation in New York, while the staff in New York has not been paid, or they are complaining, or there's no light in the mission itself, and the rest of it. So I sincerely hope and pray that the committee that has been established by the federal government will work, very fast and make its recommendations, and that government will implement some of those recommendations. Again, let me emphasize this point, and I make that point, with all due respect to the government. Foreign policy, every government knows that foreign policy is very, very expensive. But the interesting part of what's going on in this country is that compared to our African competitors, we are probably the lowest funded. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is probably the lowest funded when you make a comparison with, some of our competitors. So we need to prioritize foreign policy. Foreign policy contributes to national development. So we should not treat it with so much levity, and then, meanwhile, officials travel, they pay visits to the mission, and even in the midst of all this, I will be the one to tell you this story of even the behavior of the National Assembly that appropriates funding for these missions. They go to missions, the missions do not have money, and they insist that the officers must find one way or the other of giving them money. So you just find all kinds of, bunch of contradictions and misbehaviors when it comes to these issues.
All right, Ambassador, as we begin to wind down, I must ask you this one as well, just as we wind down on this conversation, because it's embarrassing to see that, some of these missions are having issues of rent, issues of power, and not to talk of issues of salary. These are not conversations we should be having. These are bedroom conversations as far as this is concerned. But it's not in the open, so we're here. We hope it will be sorted. But the president is making a case for Africa to have permanent seats at the UN Security Council. The last time it was at TICAD, he made that statement yet again. In fact, I think he's also making a case for Nigeria. Isn't it time?
Well, look, it's not a new case. We've always made this case. The issue has been on the table for years. The United Nations itself is not prepared for any changes. And I'm not even sure with the new dynamics we see around the world that is going to be an issue, on the nations, for some time to come. Look, when you look at the behavior of some of the world's power, particularly the United States of today, do you think that the United States of today will support any changes, to the Security Council at this point in time? Certainly no, no matter what anybody says. So if the United Nations today cannot even be involved in resolving some of the critical issues, conflicts in the world, it's been completely sidelined, you think that it's going to bother itself and put on the issue of structural reform of the bureaucracy? No, I don't think that it will. But what we need to do, as the president has done, let's keep the issue on the table. it is good to keep it on the table to continue to remind the world of the injustice done to a number of countries. Yes, when the world was when the UN was established many years ago, 1940-something, Africa was not there, but we are there today.
All right,
there are other
Ambassador.
nations
Yes,
who are that were not there, but we are all there today. We are part of the global system, and we should all be involved in the collective security of the globe.
Yes, absolutely. Ambassador, I must thank you first for your patience and for always bringing your insights when it comes to diplomacy and international relations because of your experience. Ambassador Joe Kiashi, her career ambassador. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. I appreciate it, sir. All right, we'll now cross over to Abuja Studios, where Kayode is standing by with the persons from the NDLEA. So, Kayode, it's now to you.
Former NDLEA.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. You can hear him saying former. But, you know, it never really leaves the blood. You know, we have joining us in our Abuja studio, retired Deputy Commander General of NDLEA, Sule Momodu. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. You're retired now, but they say retired but never tired. Sure. In that sense. You've been in this battle for 34 years?
Yeah, 34 plus.
34 plus years.
Yeah.
And naturally, you will have had your wins, lots of wins. Maybe losses as well, because it's natural. You win some, you lose some. But, you know, the trend is even more dangerous. You know, it looks like the farther we go, the worse it gets in that sense. So speak to us, benefit of your experience. What is the thing that worries you the most about drug abuse, illicit drugs, and all of that in Nigeria as of today?
What really worries me much about the drug issue is a lack of societal participation in addressing the issue. That's what really worries me. Yes. Societal participation.
Yes. What does that mean? Because I know the NDLEA does its work. So who are the active players in the society that you expect to be a part of this?
Everybody. By the training we got there when we were there, we were made to understand that there are stakeholders in addressing the issue of drugs. We have the parents, we have the schools, we have the religious bodies, we have the state government, we have the local government. These are the areas I'm talking about. NDLEA is doing its best, but these other areas, are they actually doing what they are supposed to do? It's a big issue. But let me tell you before you...
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was in Bauchi as the state commander, the Governor Isahiguda really gave us tremendous support in addressing the issue of scourge of drug there. And I want to put it on record that the wife of the governor of Bauchi State then, Haja Isahiguda Abiodun, as the wife of the governor, went around the whole 21 local government in Bauchi to spread the message of saying no to drug abuse. We can't find that now. And I remember when we were burning our drugs, because of the tremendous assistance the governor was giving us. The deputy governor there is late, later became a senator, Babayo Gamawa, said he now realized why it is good to support NDLEA, because the crime rate in Bauchi went down.
So it's a no-brainer. If you fight drug abuse, you are inadvertently fighting crime.
Straight away.
So maybe you want to mention some of these stakeholders that you think should do more, right? A lot of people say even the NDLEA can do better than it is doing right now. So from the stakeholders you mentioned, who are the people you think should be doing more?
Okay, take for example, we say there should be what we call the state drug control committees. They are like inter-ministerial committee to help drive the process of drug abuse in the states. How many state governments have those committees functioning? Now, how many? We are supposed to have the local government drug control committee. How many local governments actually have those committees? These are committees to drive the process
of the fight against drug abuse, ensuring that this message is passed across. Because there are some of these young people, they don't even know the consequences of drug. When you take it, they don't know the consequences.
They're just exploring.
Yeah. So it is when they have taken it that they now realize. I remember a situation where a young man said to me, say, Commander, help me. I want to quit, but it's difficult for me. Help me.
It is a very tough situation that we find ourselves in, but I'm glad that we have people like you, the NDLEA, still championing the cause. So what we'll do is from time to time, have this important conversation, remind everybody that this is a challenge that we must fight together, whether you're a parent, religious leader, government, or not. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach. So we have to thank you so much. Quite short conversation, but we hope we've been able to make important points. Retired Deputy Commander General, NDLEA, Mr. Sule Momodu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to...
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
It's a very important conversation. So this is where we draw the curtains on the show today. We have to thank you for being a part of it. Sunrise Daily, of course, comes up next from right here in our Abuja and Lagos studio. I'm Kayode Okikule.